Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, where it seems there's a lot of money in the upside down. Yes, TV has progressed from not just a place where you can stage your career comeback or launch your career, but now a place where you can get paid. Now, to be fair, TV has always been lucrative. For instance, it's a steady paycheck, which is why it's coveted by actors. And once you reach 5 seasons, particularly for a sitcom, you qualify for syndication, which again is why they always have a 5-season party with a big cake, because that means everyone's getting a check for life. But there was a period when there was big money in sitcoms from the get-go. Seinfeld, Friends. For instance, Lisa Kudrow, famously or infamously, if you were the one having to cut the checks, but she got everybody on Friends to group negotiate, and all 6 leads got $1 million per episode, even though not all totally worth it. For instance, I think the least valuable cast member was probably Lisa Kudrow. So she used that Harvard education to talk everybody into banding together and assured herself the same salary as, let's say, Jennifer Aniston, who was, I think, a much bigger draw on the show. But interestingly and tellingly, I told you that story for a reason. Millie Bobby Brown for Stranger Things Season 3 has broken from the rest of the cast and entered negotiations separately. And her negotiations are the most secret, as they've just wrapped what everyone's going. All the deals are signed, and they're about to begin filming at the end of April for Season 3 already. So that's awesome. We're going to get to have the story continue, it seems, sooner rather than later. But her salary, again, is the most secretive. But we have kind of an idea, and we have a pretty good idea of what everyone's getting paid, and it's tiered. And this is per episode, by the way. So Winona Ryder and David Harbour are now on equal footing. Winona Ryder was the big name when the show launched, so she would get the most money. And thankfully, she's a woman, so no one's going to ask her to give that money back. Poor Matt Smith. But anyway, they're both going to get $350,000 per episode for Season 3. Then all 4 boys are going to get $250,000, so $100,000 less. And then the teenagers, Nancy, Jonathan, and Steve, I think because they don't have quite as much screen time, they're getting $150 per episode. Now, the idea with Millie Bobby Brown, everyone's guessing that she could be getting as high as $350 with Winona Ryder and David Harbour, but she might just be getting $300 because she's still a child actor. But she's definitely getting more than the 4 boys. But, not substantially more. I think that Millie Bobby Brown really, I think, should take a hard look at what she wants her image to be. She won't arrive at press events or awards shows with the rest of the cast. She's going by herself. And I think she already has the upcoming new Godzilla movie coming up, and so she'll have a lot of her own press time then. And I think that she should, for only an extra, $50K an episode, why do that to your image? Why not get paid what the rest of the group gets paid? She certainly has the same amount of screen time that they do. So I'm curious, that's my first thing for you. Not only what do you think of what everyone's getting paid per episode, do you think they're worth it, but what do you think of Millie Bobby Brown from a publicity standpoint and her image as to how she's handled this whole situation? Now, they're not getting anywhere near the paydays over at HBO and Apple, where people are getting $1 million plus per episode. And for instance, you might have seen the headline where an HBO executive recently made an unfortunate comment saying that the operating budget for the whole network, HBO, has been raped by these new shows. And that really, I think, is a way to undermine the Me Too movement, to use that kind of terminology. I think it's quite distasteful. Especially, pick your battles. Those women are getting paid that money, so I don't know what that, it was a woman executive, so I don't know what she was complaining about. And then also, again, I think the Matt Smith situation, which I tweeted about yesterday, I'll put a link to that story down below in the video description, but I think that's undermining the Me Too movement as well. That Matt Smith, for season 1 and 2 of The Crown, a former Doctor Who, of course got paid more than unknown Claire Foy. But there's a petition with like 22,000 signatures for him to give that money up that he earned to the Me Too movement. I think it's just absolutely horrible. And actually this morning, as one of you sent me a new updated story, the production company has apologized to Matt Smith and Claire Foy for putting them in this situation. They never should have discussed their salaries publicly. And it looks like the production company will pay the difference, and they shouldn't. I'm strongly against it. The way the pay was done, it's nothing wrong. But anyway, as for Netflix, though, they're in a special situation because there are no residuals for Netflix shows. They don't talk about the viewership. It's kept a secret. And you pay a subscription. You're not paying per show, so it's impossible to tell how much a show itself has earned from actual viewership. So everybody has to get paid up front. That's why there's such exorbitant paychecks on Netflix. Whereas on HBO or Apple, there's Blu-ray and iTunes sales. There's a way to tell how much a show is making, and you can always promise people part of the back end. But there again is no back end on Netflix. But rarely, the situation though, it is getting exorbitant to make a popular streaming show because it has a large cast, and everybody has, there are a lot of valuable cast members, and they all have to get paid a lot of money. Whereas with a movie, it's usually one or two people that need to get paid a lot of money. Although I said Marvel was like a giant streaming show yesterday, and they too have a similar situation where they're getting a very large cast where a number of them are worth a significant amount of money. However, when it comes to streaming, there's just so much money streaming in from subscribers that they can actually afford to pay these salaries anyway. Netflix just has so much money. Although if they want to continue to be as prolific and make as many shows, they're not going to be able to continue to pay this amount. So we'll see how long it lasts. And if streaming services, right now everybody's in a war for talent, if they ultimately feel that it was worth so much money up front. We'll see. We'll see how everything does. So that's the first story of the day, and I'm very curious to hear your thoughts about it. Then, we have two businessy stories, and then we have a fun viewer question. All right, so then as everyone tries to turn themselves into Netflix, the hearing over the AT&T Time Warner merger has finally gotten underway. And it is said that we should actually have an answer in about 8 weeks as to whether or not the government will allow this merger to go ahead. Oh, that's a big deal. Now again, AT&T wants to stream content. They want to have content to offer, people who use AT&T as their wireless carrier. And then Time Warner wants to be able to stream content. They want to have a digital branch immediately, and AT&T can supply that. Although Time Warner, of course, is developing a DC streaming service as we speak. Now, if the sale doesn't go through, that's another reason I wanted to talk about this, because you'll have your answer again in 8 weeks. There's that rumor that Time Warner could splinter. Now, again, it's not going to splinter where Fox did, where, they sold off just the entertainment brands, and yet Fox remained like Fox proper. And it's not going to be it's not like what's happening at the Weinstein Company, where they're going to declare bankruptcy and everything's going to get auctioned off. I think Time Warner is so huge, the likely way it will splinter will be CNN will become its own thing for sale. Warner Brothers, including franchises like DC and Harry Potter, Warner Brothers will stay just as it is. It will just go for sale for another company to purchase it. Maybe another digital company. We'll see. Supposedly, Apple is looking to make a purchase. Some people are saying Apple or Amazon could make a big content purchase. So maybe they would be interested in Warner Brothers, which would be very interesting. And then I think Turner Broadcasting would splinter off and be for sale itself with all the cable networks. So again, you have an HBO. I don't know how HBO might become its own thing to go on for sale. So again, CNN, Warner Brothers, Turner Broadcasting, and then maybe HBO. And so that's how that would be broken up. And also, as the judge stated, he is very aware that his decision here will set a precedent for future deals like the Disney Fox one that is next on deck for approval. And also that means in 8 weeks, once we get the answer on AT&T Time Warner, that means the Disney Fox hearing can move ahead. So very interesting. We were wondering how long we'd have to wait. Now we're getting a little bit of an idea of what the timetable actually is. All right, so that's the second story of the day. Now, the third story is, speaking of government, yesterday, former Sex and the City star, the Lisa Kudrow of Sex and the City, the least popular one, Cynthia Nixon, announced her candidacy for New York governor and will run against incumbent Andrew Cuomo in the Democratic primary to be the party's candidate. For Cuomo, this is a big deal. He has a potential presidential bid on the line, and if he loses here, that would take away his chance to run for president. So I'm sure he's like, what the heck? I'm running against a Sex and the City star all of a sudden. And he's like, I use the term loosely. So we'll see how he handles this. But I'm wondering if this is the beginning of the Trump effect, and also to some degree what's happening with the Obamas and Netflix. So allow me to explain. So usually there are celebrities, this is not totally new where celebrities have got into elected office. It usually happens in California. Of course, Ronald Reagan was governor, then he became president of the United States, was, it was an anomaly back then. Arnold Schwarzenegger, of course, also was the governor of California. Jesse Ventura, was elected governor of Minnesota. And then in the Senate, you've had Sonny Bono, you've had Al Franken, who recently imploded. And then on a smaller scale, for local office like mayor and stuff like that, you've had Jerry Springer, Clint Eastwood. So it's happened, but it used to be a nice little job that you had when your career kind of was like, waning. You're like, what do I want to do with my twilight years? I know, give back and help with the government, right? But I think with the amount of change that Trump is able to, well, seems to be able to affect, and the level of attention that he's getting, he's right in the thick of things, right? This doesn't seem like some little Twilight Years gig anymore, right? And also with the potential Netflix deal for the Obamas, suddenly elected office is not a nice last act, right? Or one of your final acts, but it's become a primetime gig that could, like television, reboot your career. It's fascinating. Now, this is tough because clearly voters are tired of broken promises and a lack of change. They feel things are stuck in a rut here in the United States. And so they want to shake up the system, which is one of the reasons. That's one of the things that not just Trump, but Bernie Sanders ran on. And so I think you're seeing that, really voters are willing to take a chance, particularly on a familiar face, right? They have positive feelings toward. But governing, as many people are pointing out, as more and more celebrities say, maybe I'm going to run, it's difficult. I think someone like Bob Iger, business people, Bloomberg, very successful politician here in New York City specifically, they are a little bit, I think, more accustomed to running these giant juggernauts with so many moving parts. So I'd be more about Bob Iger than, celebrities. So maybe I would like to, although I don't know, I don't want to get into a Trump discussion. So anyway, I think that maybe something that could arise is a new industry of political support for these candidates that can help them to understand the intricacies of government and get them up to speed and advise them, right? But this is very, very tricky. And also I'm wondering how career politicians can compete with celebrities, right? Especially as politics is becoming so social media based. So I'm curious, what do you think of this development? Are you in favor of Cynthia Nixon running? We'll see how she does, and we'll see what other celebrities enter the fray next. But it's a very interesting situation. I think keep an eye on George Clooney. He's extremely politically minded, and his career is not going so well. So maybe he will run for office. We'll see what happens. All right, so the viewer question. Let's get to that's some serious stuff, those middle two stories. Let's do something light and fun. Now, the viewer question comes from appropriately Infinity. And Infinity tweeted me a question and says, at Grace Randolph, I have a question for you. Why does Chris Pratt appear last in the billing, on the poster for Avengers Infinity War? And he has an "and" before him. Is it suggesting he is only a guest star? Well, so the issue here, and we're going to have a little quick lesson in star power and posturing, okay? So yes, it could mean that Chris Pratt's role is smaller, but considering how popular his movies are, his two Guardians of the Galaxy movies are, and how much he factors into the trailer alone, this last trailer, I think it's likely the following situation. All right, so Pratt is a huge star these days. He not only has those two Guardians of the Galaxy's movies, but also he's in Jurassic World. He was in the first one of the most successful movies of all time, and he's in another Jurassic World this same summer. So his representatives want to protect his image. Chris Pratt is a movie star, and they want to make sure that that comes across. However, he's not an original Avenger, so there's no way he's going before the first 5 names on this poster. Robert Downey Jr., Chris Hemsworth, Mark Ruffalo, Chris Evans, and Scarlett Johansson. Because they were the very first Avengers team, I'm sure it says in their contract that they must go first. And even Hemsworth is before Chris Evans, who's, I think, the bigger star in the MCU, even after Thor Ragnarok. But I think because Hemsworth was cast first, he gets to go first in the rankings of the names. Also, Mark Ruffalo is a three-time Oscar nominee, and one of those nominations was before he joined the Avengers. So I'm sure that's why he gets third ahead of Evans, even though the Hulk, has never had a solo movie. Now, after that, you could conceivably put Chris Pratt, but that would mean he would come right before Benedict Cumberbatch. And I think that his agents, again, his representation, don't want anyone thinking that they're at the same level. With all due respect to Benedict Cumberbatch, he does not have the same career as Chris Pratt. So instead, where else are you going to put him? The next best thing is a prestigious "and" credit. You can see Josh Brolin is in the same situation. But Pratt even goes after Brolin. You would think that Brolin is he's the villain, he's the last added. He would go last. But I think they're like, look, Pratt's a really big star. You're mixing him in here. We want you to treat him right. You got to put him last. So I think that to have him last, it underscores how special it is to have him involved. So that's the situation. That's a look inside posturing to establish and maintain an image of star power. And that's how an "and" credit can be used. So thank you for a great question, Infinity, I know you're excited about the movie. Thank you everybody for tuning in today. Please write down below what you think today's top 3 stories. Infinity's viewer question, what do you think of the listings of the names? Does that matter to you? How do you feel about it? It matters, the industry pays attention to it. So even if it doesn't matter to you, it's important, for other producers and studio executives to just get an idea of what's going on there. But anyway, write your thoughts down below, including what you'd like to see covered tomorrow, and of course, any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.